Hey guys, Larry the Tractor Guy here. Check this out. So we've got a 9460R here with an ECU code of a 522.494.09, talking about the intake air sensor. So we're going to take a look at that real quick, and this is a common problem that I found, and so I'm going to show you a quick tip about that. We're going to dig into this a little bit and see what we get into. We did verify that we do have the ECU 522.494.09 intake air sensor communication error on this 9460, and it looks like it has hit that code somewhere about 126 times. And customer says that when he's running the tractor in the field at high idle, it seems to be fine, but when he throttles the tractor down, that's when it hits the code. Or sometimes if he hits a rough spot out in the field, it'll hit that code, okay? So we're looking at this code here on Service Advisor, this 522.494.09 intake air sensor communication fault, okay? So basically it's saying the ECU has not detected CAN communication with the intake air sensor. And so what's interesting is that intake air sensor is on the CAN communication link in the tractor, so it is communicating back to the ECU via CAN bus, okay? And so we're taking a look at this real quick and kind of run down through the diagnostics, and I've done this several times over the years, and so I want to show this to you. So we're looking down through that, and I want to show you real quick. So there is, I'm just scrolling down through there, there is 13 steps to diagnosing that fault code, okay? And if you follow through all of those steps, you will probably for sure find your problem, okay? But I'm going to show you real quick what I've done in the past. And if you've got one of these 9R tractors and you're hitting this code, this is something you can look at really quick. And I'll show you real quick when I step up here on the tractor, and I'll show you what I'm finding. More times than not, this is what I'm finding on that particular code. Right here on the rear of the engine, on this air pipe right here. Okay, that's going to be your intake air sensor, okay? And it's looking at that air coming into the engine from the filter. Okay, so it's got this connector on it here, and we're going to unplug that real quick. And so I've got my connector here, and I've already peeled the insulation back, kind of split that open with a blade knife there, trying not to get into my wiring, okay? And I want to show you something real quick with this. I'm looking at those 4 wires, okay, and it's a CAN communication sensor, okay? And so many times I've seen a lot of people change this sensor, go ahead and put this sensor in, doesn't fix their problem. Okay, so I'm looking at this wiring harness. I really don't see anything wrong as far as the terminals in the end of the connector, and you really don't physically see anything wrong. But check this out. So if you're having this problem, go ahead and unplug that sensor and look at the wiring here, particularly right in here around this area where the wires go up into the cavity of the connector. Okay, so I'm going to grab these wires and kind of tug on them a little bit. Don't really see anything. I'm going to tug on this one, if you can see that. So I'm tugging on that, and it just pulled apart. Okay, so basically, I don't know if it's from vibration, and I kind of suspect that it probably is, but basically the wire, this wire, and I can give you that wire number later, but this wire basically was broke inside of the plastic coating on the wire. So the plastic coating was still in contact there, or together, and basically making an intermittent connection, okay? So you would probably find that if you've done a current load test on the wire and went through the diagnostics, but just a quick reference, I just inspected that and found that problem right away. Okay, so the fix for that is going to be to go ahead and replace this connector and put new terminals in, and go ahead and come back and find good wire there. Go ahead and cut that connector out and redo your connector. Now keep in mind, these wires are numbered, okay? And so make sure that when you're putting the new connector on, that you do get all of these wires back in the same cavity that they came out of on the connector, okay? Otherwise, you're gonna have to go back and do a lot of searching to find those wires in a schematic to repair that, okay? So keep that in mind, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and install a new connector. We're gonna cut these off, put new terminals on, and probably we'll go ahead and change the connector housing. You can extract these pins from this connector. I think it's a better idea to go ahead and just cut that out, put new terminals on and a new connector. Reason being is because sometimes these terminals can become relaxed, okay? And so if you can see right there, the terminal, this is sort of a terminal that fits over a pin, okay? And so if that terminal gets a little bit relaxed and as tight as this connector housing fits up on the sensor, it can cause it not to make a good connection all the time. So keep that in mind. So we're going to go ahead and do that real quick, and so stay tuned and we'll show you what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and strip that coating on the wire back to get some good wire exposed there. So we've got good wire to crimp our new terminal on, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and stick my seal on there. Go ahead and run my seal up on my wire, okay, just past the exposed wire back to the coating that's on the wire, okay? So that's what that'll look like. And then I've got a crimping tool here that I like to use. So if you're looking at the terminal, the back portion of the terminal will bite down on the seal, and then the middle of the terminal will actually be what you will crimp to the wire, okay? Sort of like that. Okay, so keep that in mind if you're installing one of these, to make sure you get a good crimp on that, okay? So today I'm going to use a cinch style crimping tool that works really good even on that style of terminal. It's actually made for a different terminal, but it works really good on this style of a terminal. We're going to use the first portion here of the crimping tool. It's a little bit larger in diameter, and it crimps that terminal at just about the right strength. You can use various other crimping tools too, but this is the one that I like to use. So I've got my terminal loaded in my crimping tool, so I'm going to force that up into the terminal, okay, and we will put a crimp on that. So I've made my crimp on this first wire, and you can see the wire is up inside of the middle portion of the terminal, and I got a pretty good crimp on my seal, okay? And so I'm going to go ahead and show you how to install that in the new connector housing, and then we'll go ahead and carry on and fix the other 3 wires, okay? Now keep in mind that your connector housing has a locking device here that locks on the sensor, so that would be a pretty good indicator on which cavity to install this green wire in, okay? So I'm just looking at the connector and facing it exactly the same, okay? And so you're going to slide your terminal up in the back side of your connector as so, and slide it all the way in until it clicks. Once it clicks, it is locked in place, okay? My seal is making a good seal here on the back side, okay? So we're going to go ahead and fix the other wires, and I'm going to cut the other wires sort of about the same length of where my break was in that wire, okay? So that we have plenty of wire to go ahead and make our connection here with our terminal, okay? So stay tuned, and I'll show you what that looks like when we do these other 3 wires. This is what it looks like after you've repaired that plug and installed all of your new wires. You can see I've got a pretty good seal on the back side where my seals are fitting up into the cavity of the connector, okay? And I made sure that I pushed all of my terminals in deep enough that they did click into place and lock into place, okay? This is the old connector here, okay? So I just left all the wires in there and cut them one at a time, crimped my new terminals on, and installed them in my new connector housing, okay? Something else to keep in mind on these tractors is something I do pretty regular, if I'm fighting this problem. This little hold down clamp here, I will go ahead and take that clamp off. We call them a P-clamp, and it's sort of bolted down here next to the sensor. I'm gonna go ahead and remove that and not use that anymore. And there's a pretty sharp bend right there, okay? And so I'm gonna get a little bit more slack down here on the bottom side where there's another connector or another wire holder, okay? To give me some more slack to be able to plug that in and not be pulling on the back side of this connector housing, okay? And so keep that in mind to try to remove and get as much slack as you can so that you're making a nice rounded area right there to go in straight into that sensor. So I've got the sensor plugged back in. As you can see, I've left quite a bit of slack there coming into the back side of this plug. Okay, I think that'll alleviate a lot of his wire problems where it's getting broke just inside of the plastic of the wire. We've started the 9460R up here and ran it just a little bit to make sure that our air sensor code was gone. Okay, so it's no longer active now. So just a quick recap on the 9460R with the ECU 522.494.09 communication code with the intake air sensor. Some people do call it a tri-can sensor. I can't remember, the sensor's pretty expensive, and so you might want to just tip of the day, do a little bit of investigating on your wiring just on the back side of that connector before you go through the trouble of replacing the sensor and then going through the trouble of doing a lot of diagnostics. And if you're interested in fixing this yourself, I'm going to drop a link at the bottom of the page here, and you can look those parts up online and buy those parts from us. Appreciate you watching. A lot more videos coming soon. So Larry the Tractor Guy signing out. Hey guys, check out Larry the Tractor Guy videos here, other videos here, subscribe here, and buy all your John Deere parts here.
We'll make it work. I think
We're gonna have to make it.
We'll make it work. Come on, let's go.
We need to make
You need some food.
Y'all already burned me out.
some bloopers.
He's sitting in the sun over here, man.